Hello students, good morning. Welcome to the program NEET Foundation, and in this video we are going to discuss about a remaining part of nervous coordination, that is nothing but the peripheral nervous system. What is peripheral nervous system? The nerves which arises from the brain and also the spinal cord. Okay, so let us see in detail what is the function of the peripheral nervous system in giving the responses to a particular stimulus by the living organisms, right? So let us see here, the peripheral nervous system includes what kind of organs are included in the peripheral nervous system. That includes the sensory receptors, sensory neurons and motor neurons, right? So these sensory receptors, sensory neurons, spinal cord, and within the spinal cord we can observe the interneurons and also the connecting link towards to the motor neurons. So these motor neurons are attached towards to the organs called as a effector organs. Okay, so two types of effector organs, nothing but the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system, nothing but voluntary muscles and also the involuntary muscles. Okay, so according to the situation, the different types of reactions must be given by the body. According to the stimulus, the reaction will be, right? So let us see here. So here what plays a major role? The sensory receptors are activated. When do they activate? When the sense organs are receiving the stimulus externally or internally. So first of all, the receptors of the sense organs which are attached to the receptors of sensory neurons are attached towards to the sense organs. So these are making the stimulus. So they become activated by receiving the stimulus, and that will be generating the electrical impulse. So after the sensory receptors are activated by the stimulus. So this stimulus is converted into the information which is getting from outside is converted into electronic signal. Nothing but we can also consider it as a electrical impulse. So this is transmitted towards to the sensory neuron. What is transmitted? The stimulus is received by the receptor. So this receptor, the stimulus is making the is converting into the electrical signal, and it is moving into the sensory neuron and sending the message towards to the CNS, right? So the sensory neurons connected with the sensory receptors to the CNS. What involves the CNS? What organs are involved in the CNS? Nothing but the brain and the spinal cord. So the CNS processes the signal and transmits a message back to an effector organ, nothing but the organ which responds to a nerve impulses from the CNS. So what is the role played by the CNS here? The brain and the spinal cord. Spinal cord is responsible for transferring the messages from the sensory neuron towards to the brain, and the brain will be analyzing what kind of stimulus is received by the brain. Okay, the stimulus which is carried out by the receptors and the sensory neurons are carried towards to the CNS through the spinal cord, and the brain analyzes, and in return it is sending the message towards to the effector organs. Okay, so here we can observe, so they will be continuously receiving the impulses, the generation of the impulses, either it might be the electrical impulse or it might be the chemical impulse. So finally what happens? So through the motor neuron, the effector organs are receiving the signal, right, in the form of an impulse, and the muscles which are present in the body will be responsible for giving the reaction. Right? Internally, our internal organs also gives the reaction. Like for example, as we ingest the food material, the food will be swallowed by our teeth and moved by the tongue, and it will be converting into the porridge slimy structure and easy for swallowing. After swallowing, what is the fate of a food? Right? Where does it go? It goes towards to the respective organs, right? What are the respective organs? After the mouth, it goes to buccal cavity to esophagus to stomach to small intestine to large intestine. What moves from small intestine to large intestine? Okay, so materials are moving with the help of the muscles. Okay, so this is the autonomic nervous system function, nothing but smooth muscles which work with the help of the neural system, right? Let us see in the picture what is given. The peripheral nervous system, which is receiving by the receptors and sending the message by generating the impulse called as a electrical impulse. Electrical impulse, and here the sensory or the efferent neuron generates the stimulus as an electrical impulse and sending towards to the brain. What is the brain work over here? It analyzes, right? So as it analyzes, the information which is given towards to the motor neuron will be related to the kind of reaction must be given by the effector organ. Okay, so what is the effector organ here? The muscle will be the effector organ. It receives the signals from the motor neuron. Which kind of neuron it is? It's a motor neuron. Okay, so effector organs will be of different types. One will be the voluntary and one more will be the involuntary. Hope you all understood, dears. Coming to the next concept. What is the next concept? The somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. So here the peripheral nervous system will be dividing into two. As we discussed just now, the muscles will be of two kinds. According to the stimulus, internally the muscles will be working with the help of the autonomic nervous system without the controlling power of the brain, though they themselves, until we complete our lifespan, continuously the muscles will be going for muscle contraction and the relaxation. Okay, so here the somatic nervous system, nothing but the voluntary muscles. The voluntary muscles which are responsible for giving the reaction which is under the control of the brain, and the somatic nervous system or voluntary nervous system enables the humans to react consciously with the help of a brain. The reaction will be given. Okay, so according to what? The environmental changes, nothing but the stimulus, external stimulus. So it includes, what includes? The peripheral nervous system includes two types of pairs of nerves. The numbering you can observe here, one is the 31 pairs and one more is the 12 pairs. 31 pairs of nerves which arises from the root ganglions of the spinal cord. So they are considered as a spinal nerves, right? So what is the count of the spinal nerves? As you know already, so they are the 31 pairs of spinal nerves and one more which arises from the cranium, nothing but the brain. So those 12 pairs of nerves which are arising from the brain are called as a cranial nerves, right? So this system controls the movement of skeletal or the voluntary muscles. So this voluntary action is nothing but the somatic nervous system. Okay, next. So in this you see the spinal cord which is responsible for connecting of two types of nerves. One is dorsal region, we can observe the sensory neuron which receives the stimulus from the sense organs, and here we can observe in the dorsal, in the internal region of the spinal cord we can observe the interneurons. Okay, so these interneurons will be receiving the stimulus and sending the messages. Okay, so sending the messages towards to the motor neurons, and that sending message towards to the two kinds of muscles. One is the voluntary muscle and one more is the involuntary muscle. So here we can observe the autonomic division, nothing but autonomic nervous system which includes the smooth muscles. So here you see this is the blood vessel. So blood vessel, it always continuously until we complete our lifespan, not only we, the human beings and also the other organisms, wherever we can observe the closed circulatory system, the blood vessels which contains the muscular structures always go for contraction and relaxation for making the blood to move. Okay, so this is nothing but the autonomic nervous system. Okay, what is the second system? Somatic nervous system. Okay, so somatic in the sense which is under the willpower of a brain. Okay, so these are responsible for giving the reaction according to the stimulus, right? Next, what is the next concept? within the spinal cord we can observe the dorsal root ganglion and the ventral root ganglion. So as we already know that dorsal root ganglion arises the sensory neurons and ventral root arises the motor neurons. So 31 pairs of spinal nerves emerge various segments of the spinal cord. Okay, so 31 pairs of spinal nerves, what they are doing itself. So they are arising from the spinal cord and differentiated, nothing but distributed towards to the multiple organs. So each spinal nerve has a dorsal root and a ventral root. Okay, so that is what the picture also indicates. The blue nerve indicates the sensory neuron, and here in the ventral root whatever the nerve is arising is the motor neuron. Okay, so in between what we can observe, a kind of neuron is called as a interneuron, or also we can say it as a associative neuron, right? Next, so what is the function of this? So these are responsible for sending the messages from the dorsal root, whatever the sensory neuron carry the impulses towards to CNS, and CNS analyzes, send the message towards to the, in the form of impulses. The motor neurons will be receiving the impulses and sending towards to the effector organ. Okay, so these are transmitting the information from the spinal cord, from the sensory receptors. Receptors plays a very major role which are attached towards to the sense organs. And what is the next concept? Within the spinal cord only there is a ventral root. So what arises from the ventral root? So here we can observe the efferent fibers, efferent neurons or the efferent fibers also we can say, nothing but the motor neurons. So that carry the messages from the spinal cord towards to effectors. What kind of effectors? It might be the smooth muscles or it might be the voluntary muscles or skeletal muscles also we can say. The cell bodies of the efferent fibers reside in the spinal cord grey matter. What plays a major role here? The cell bodies of the neuron. Which kind of neuron? Of the efferent neurons, which accommodates inside the grey matter of a spinal cord. So these roots become nerves that innervate, nothing but the transmitting the information in the form of a nerve impulses. So they are sending the message towards to muscles and organs throughout the body. Throughout the complete body we have different types of muscles. They are the skeletal muscles and also the smooth muscles, right? So let us see here, in this we can observe the spinal cord. This is the grey matter, internally grey matter, and inside to this we can observe the interneuron which receives and sends. Okay, and here what are the basic elements which are present in the spinal cord, giving the response towards to the stimulus. First element is the receptor attached to the sense organ, and next one is the stimulus converting into impulse in the sensory neuron. It sends towards to the integration center, nothing but the place where the internal part of the spinal cord is called as a integral center, integration center. Integration is nothing but coordination, receiving and sending. Okay, so next one is motor neuron. So after the integration center, the associative neuron generates the impulses which is getting from the brain. Analyzed impulse will be sending towards to the motor neuron, and that will be activating the effector organ. Okay, so then the effector organ will be giving the reaction for particular stimulus, right? Next concept. So now let us see different types of pairs of nerves, peripheral nerves. So there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. So each and every pair of nerve which plays a very major role in attaching to a particular organ, that makes the activation of the organ, so that the particular organ can give the reaction for a particular stimulus. Let us see in detail here. Transmit from special sensory receptors the information on the senses of balance. Okay, so what do? They balance the systems. What kind of balancing? The body balance, the smell, the sight, the taste and also the hearing. Okay, so these are the different types of reactions which are given by our sense organs. With the ears we can able to hear, with the eyes we could able to view, with the mouth we could able to talk, with the skin we could able to sense what kind of touch it is, either it might be cold or it might be hot, right, or it might be a sensation, a very pleasure sensation, whatever it can be. Yes, a very smooth one also if it touches, the leaf touches. So do we give any negative response for that? We can't give. Why? Because it's a positive stimulus for us. Okay, so all these are maintained by the 12 pairs of cranial nerves. So the cranial nerves also carries the information from general sensory receptors in the body. Okay, so what are general sensory receptors? Wherever the sense organs are present, there we can observe the attachment of receptors towards to the sense organs. This information which is mostly done in the head region. Within the head region only we can observe maximum sense organs. Okay, so this information is processed in the CNS, the brain and the spinal cord. So the resulting orders nothing but in the form of impulses. So what plays a major role here? Motor neurons which are interneurated by the interneurons travel the orders back through the cranial nerves towards to the skeletal muscles that controls the movement of the face and the throat. Okay, so we do give multiple reactions. Facial expressions will be multiple, right? So if we see something which is very pleasant for us, if we see the brightful climate, yes, so it will be very beautiful. So our eyes will be just like will be enjoying it. And if somebody is crying or if somebody is trying to blame us, tease us, okay, so what we do? If somebody is giving a high sound towards to us, okay, immediately we'll go for closing our ears. Okay, so like for example, if we eat something bitter taste, right, so what will be our reaction? The facial expressions will be changed. The muscles which are present in the face are changing according to the kind of stimulus which is taken up by the sensory organs, are manipulated, are nothing but are coordinated, are analyzed by the brain, and the kind of muscles which are present inside the face are responsible for giving the reaction. Okay, this is just one of the example. Okay, so inside the face we can observe the type of muscles called as a skeletal muscles. So such as for smiling and swallowing. These are just some of the examples. We swallow with our throat. Okay, so here we can observe how do we swallow, right? The lower jaw moves so that we could able to masticate the food. The salivary glands which secretes the saliva which is responsible for making the food slimy substance so that easily we can swallow. The swallowing is also very important. Okay, so that is done by the brain and also the nerves, right? So in addition, some cranial nerves contain somatic and autonomic motor fibers. Not only the voluntary muscles, also the involuntary muscles which are present inside the cranial nerves. It's nothing but they coordinate with the different types of nerves, right? So let us see here, these are the different types of nerves which arises from the brain. Okay, so first nerve is the olfactory nerve related to the nasal cavity, nothing but the smell. What is the second nerve? Is the optic nerve which is related to the eyes. Okay, and next third one is the oculomotor nerve which is responsible for the movement of the muscles which are attached to sensory organs, right? Sensory organs related to the eyes. And what is the fourth nerve? Where is the fourth nerve here? Trochlear nerve, also related to the movement of eye muscles. And what is the fifth nerve? Trigeminal nerve, sensory phase, sinuses, teeth, orbit and oral cavities. Okay, so different types of nerves plays different types of roles for different types of sensory organs to give the reaction for a particular stimulus. Okay, and like this different types of nerves, cranial nerves which are attached towards to the different types of sense organs to give the responses. Okay, right. So next concept is the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic, nothing but the muscles which involves here are the involuntary muscles. The involuntary nervous system, nothing but autonomic nervous system, maintains the homeostasis. What does it maintain? It maintains the homeostasis. So its parts include the receptors within viscera, nothing but the internal organs. The receptors are embedded within the interiorly the internal organs are attached with the receptors, so that the information whatever is happening inside the internal organs, the receptors will be receiving the message. It sends the message towards to the brain and the spinal cord, and there we can observe the reaction will be given by the particular muscles of the such particular organ. If we get a stomach ache, why do we get a stomach ache? If something dysfunctioning happening inside the stomach, the muscles of stomach will be not functioning properly. So who is guiding here? The neural system and some of the endocrine glands, which also plays a major role in this process, okay, and the brain will be acting as a controlling unit, right? So here the efferent nerves that relay the information towards to CNS, already we have discussed this. The CNS plays a major role in analyzation. Yes, and the efferent nerves that relay the action back to the organs called as a effector organs. Okay, so this is a continuous process, cyclic process. So this is the coordinating process which is interrelated to each and every organ. Organs are connected with the neurons. Neurons are connected with the spinal cord and the brain. Brain analyzation is being received by the another type of neurons, and these neurons sends the analyzed information in the form of impulses towards to the effector organs. So the effectors in this system are smooth muscle, cardiac muscle and the glands. Okay, so autonomic nervous system, they themselves, they will be functioning with the help of a neural system. Some of the muscles will be smooth muscles, some of the muscles will be cardiac muscles. Cardiac muscle in the sense appearance, structurally it looks like a voluntary muscle, but functionally it functions as a involuntary muscle. And the glands, different kinds of glands which are present in the body. Okay, so that structures which are functioning without any conscious control, the nerves plays a very major role in this involuntary actions. Okay, and let us see here what is homeostasis. Maintenance of the body temperature. So as we go to the different kinds of climatic conditions, a body temperature will be constant always, right? So that is being maintained by the homeostasis. Okay, so this is, next one is the different organs which are present, which are involved with the neurons. So these neurons which plays a very major role in undergoing involuntary actions, passage of the urine and movement of the blood, movement of the food, movement of the different types of fluids, liquids, solids and the gases in a particular organs are triggered by the neurons. Okay, so that is nothing but the autonomic nervous system. Hope you all understood, dears. So here the autonomic nervous system is divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. Okay, next, what is the next concept? The sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. So there is one of the example he has mentioned here, an example of autonomic control, nothing but involuntary muscles. Involuntary muscles, movement of food through the digestive tract during the sleep. Even when we go for sleep, the food will be digested, it seems. Who is responsible for that? The brain is responsible for that, the nerves are responsible for that, and some of the endocrine hormones are responsible for that. So here the efferent portion of the autonomic system is divided. Efferent, nothing but motor neurons are dividing themselves into two partitions. So one for contraction of the muscles of internal organs and one works for the relaxation of the internal organs, muscles of the internal organs. Okay, so let us see here one of the example is given. So within this, the parasympathetic and sympathetic, the autonomic nervous system, only the motor neurons which are responsible for giving the reaction. Okay, so one for the contraction of muscle, one for the relaxation of muscle. Both are the muscles, right? But action is divided into two parts. Those are called as the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. So example, one of the organ he has mentioned here. So they have given the heart rate. What is the heart rate? Beating of heart. Okay, so what is the heart? It looks like a skeletal muscle, but it functions like a involuntary muscle. Okay, so the parasympathetic system, nervous system, decreases the heart rate itself. Why it has to decrease? The body blood pressure has to be maintained in a normal condition according to the age of a personality or any sort of living organisms. Okay, the heart rate must be decreased by the one of the motor neurons, parasympathetic nervous system. And what is the simultaneous work of the sympathetic system of the same organ muscle? It's undergoing the increasing the rate of heart, while the sympathetic nervous system increases the heart rate. One is increasing and one is decreasing in the same process. So one will be responsible for inhalation process and one kind of system will be responsible for exhalation process during the respiration. And what about the stomach, muscles contraction and the relaxation? Okay, so there we can observe the multiple types of the muscles. Smooth muscles, one for movement of the food material, one for stopping of food material until it digests completely and then it goes in a forward direction, right? In the same process, we can observe the other organs, muscles also making the substances, either it might be the liquids or the solids or the gaseous forms which are moving from one place to another place with the help of a involuntary actions, one for contraction and one for the relaxation, right? Hope you all understood, dears, the relation between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. Let us go for the sympathetic nervous system. One of the great example he has mentioned here. So it controls the fight and flight away reaction itself. So what is fight and flight away? Adrenaline hormone, which is secreted by the adrenal gland, which accommodates on the anterior portion of the kidneys. Okay, so the sympathetic nerves mobilize the energy for mobilizing in the sense making it to secrete the hormone. Okay, so this is for fight or flight reaction during the stress. Okay, so during stress what happens? Mechanisms undergoes what metabolical activities, distractions occur in our body. Okay, so the blood pressure increases. Increasing of what? The blood pressure increases it seems, and increasing the rate of the breathing also, and within the muscles the flow of blood also will be very high. So that what happens? The distraction of the for normal body functions may become more. Okay, so it is fight and flight away. Again it controls. Okay, the muscles which are secreting, it will be relaxing for stopping the secretion of the hormone. Okay, so that is done by the sympathetic nervous system. See, the example is given over here. The boy got scared of a sound, right, or of any sort of situation. Okay, so he is moving away, running apart from them. So during running what happens? So our actions are increasing. As our action increases, the breathing rate increases. As the breathing rate increases, the blood flow also increases. As the blood flow increases, the body requires lots of energy and it utilizes much amount of the ATP molecules. Okay, so all those are the distractions which occur in a different sort of conditions, right? Next, what is the next concept? The parasympathetic nerves. So conversely, the parasympathetic nerves have a calming effect. Calming in the sense, the muscles which will be responsible for relaxation process, right? And they slow down the heartbeat and breathing rate and promotes the digestion and also promotes the elimination. Nothing but excretion process will be eliminated by the parasympathetic system. The heart rate will be decreased by the parasympathetic system and the breathing rate also will be decreased by the parasympathetic system. So these are just the examples of the parasympathetic. The example of intimate interaction with the endocrine system, not only the neural system. Here one more system is also, regulating system is also working over here coordinatingly. So that is called as a endocrine system. Sometimes the both systems coordinate with each other mutually for controlling the body actions, so that it is considered as a neuroendocrine system. Okay, so where there is an involvement of neural system and also the endocrine system, we can observe the process undergoes called as a neuroendocrine system. Okay, and right here these are the different types of organs which undergo the nerves which are arising from the cranial nerves. Okay, next, the relationship between sensory and the motor neurons. What is the relationship? Yes, as the motor neurons receives the analyzation process of the stimulus, then only the motor neurons sends the impulses towards to the effector organs. Without the neurons, without the sensory neurons, there is no use of motor neurons. Without the motor neurons, there is no use of sensory neurons. If it generates the impulses towards the brain, if there is no motor neuron, so what is the use of sending the message to brain? For what the brain will be sending the message? To give a reaction. Okay, so there is a interrelation between sensory neuron and the motor neuron. So here the relationship is nothing but the reflex arc. Nothing but the reflex arc. The relationship between sensory and motor neurons can be seen in a reflex, a rapid motor response towards to a particular stimulus. Either it might be the external or internal. So reflexes are the quick responses because they involve very few neurons. Why they involve very few neurons? Here the neurons which are arising from the spinal cord will play a very major role in giving a very quick reactions which are given towards to the muscles, voluntary muscles by the spinal cord itself. Okay, so resulting in the contraction of the skeletal muscle give a reactions it seems, but what kind of action? Autonomic action, not under the control of brain, by the control of a neurons which are present in the spinal cord, which is responsible for giving a immediate reaction. So all reflex arcs have 5 basic elements. Already we have discussed. What are those 5 elements? One is the receptor, one more is the sensory neuron. Receptor receives the stimulus. So this stimulus by the receptor generates the electrical impulse towards to the sensory neuron. So sensory neuron sends the electrical impulse towards to the associative neuron in the integration center. First element receptor, second element sensory neuron, third element is the integration center, fourth element is the motor neuron, and fifth element is the effector organ. Okay, so these are the basic 5 elements which involves for giving a reaction for particular stimulus. Okay, right? Hope you all enjoyed the video, dears. We'll meet in the next session. Thank you.